He was young, strong, and desperately foolish. He was a teenage bear cub, but the word cub hardly suited him anymore. He was almost as tall as his mother, and one could already see in him the biblical power of his father, that very giant beast whose compassion seemed to go beyond the usual laws of the taiga. He had inherited his father's strength, but not his wisdom. He was driven not by instinct, but by an unbridled, all-consuming curiosity. And on this day, in the heart of a bleak, unwelcoming autumn, that curiosity would be his death sentence. The tiger was hungry. The berries had fallen. The fish had gone deep. The air smelled of coming snow and despair. The bear cub, separated from his mother, wandered along the slope littered with windfall, and his nose caught not the smells of food, but the smells of rot and emptiness. And then, suddenly he smelled it. It wasn't the smell of the forest. It was a thick, inviting, rich smell. The smell of dried meat soaked in something else, something sharp and attractive. It came from a small clearing where someone had left this gift among the low alder bushes. His father might have recognized the lie in that smell. He would have caught the subtle, acrid note of human sweat, the smell of rusty metal and death. But the young bear could only smell food. He entered the clearing. The meat was tied to a thin tree, and at its base, covered with moss, lay a noose. It was not a simple trap. It was a snare, a flexible steel cable designed not to kill, but to suffocate. It was part of a poaching network spread across the forest, blind and merciless. The bear cub poked his nose at the bait. He was so focused on eating that he didn't notice his front paw slipping into the ring. He tugged at the meat. The mechanism worked. The steel loop snapped shut on his paw with a dry, silent click just above the wrist. For the first second, he didn't understand. He felt only a slight touch. He jerked his paw, and then the cable tightened. The steel dug into his fur, his skin, his flesh. He roared. But it wasn't a roar. It was a frightened, panicked squeal. He jerked back, and that was his biggest mistake. The trap's mechanism was simple. The harder you pull, the tighter the loop tightens. The steel dug into his bone. The pain was blinding, unbearable. It drowned out hunger, curiosity. It drowned out everything except one thing: primal terror. He struggled. He rolled on the ground, roaring and biting the air. He gnawed at his own fur. He sank his teeth into the steel cable, which only scratched his enamel indifferently. He was young, he was strong, and all his biblical power, inherited from his father, was useless against the thin, flexible noose. He struggled until he was exhausted, his roar turning into a hoarse, desperate whimper. He was trapped, he was wounded, and he was alone. He didn't know how long he lay there, trembling with pain and shock, as blood slowly soaked the moss beneath his mangled paw. He didn't hear her approach. He smelled her. It was a scent that made even wolf packs give it a wide berth. A thick, musky, primal scent of rage and hunger. The scent of a beast that had no enemies because it was everyone's enemy. The bear cub froze. He stopped breathing. He opened his eyes in terror. From behind the fallen tree, moving with unhurried, eerie confidence, she emerged. A wolverine. She was a large female, the embodiment of pure, concentrated ferocity. A demon of the north. She walked, sniffing, her head low to the ground. She was attracted by the noise. She was attracted by the smell of blood. She saw the bear. She stopped 10 meters away. For the wolverine, it was a scene from a dream. A huge, fat, adolescent bear cub. Easy prey. He wasn't just wounded. He was trapped. He was immobilized. It was a feast that the tiger itself had served her on a platter. The bear cub whimpered pitifully. It was caught between two deaths, a slow one from the steel snare, and a quick one from fangs capable of crushing bones. The wolverine took a step, her lips curling to reveal powerful jaws. She was already anticipating the taste of warm flesh. And then she stopped. She sucked in her breath. Again, something resembling bewilderment reflected on her ugly, scarred face. She smelled blood. She smelled fear, but through that thick, Animal smell. Another scent broke through, barely perceptible, familiar. She took another step. She approached not the bear cub's head, but its side where the fur was thicker. She sniffed, and she remembered. She remembered not with this beast. She remembered with her blood, with her maternal instinct. It was that smell. The smell of a giant brown bear. The smell she had last smelled when she pressed her head against his mighty paw, thanking him for saving her own tiny, trembling cub from the jaws of a wolf pack. The one lying in front of her in the noose was not just a bear. He was his son. He smelled like him. He smelled like salvation. The wolverine backed away. Her world, simple and cruel. A world where there were only two rules: kill and eat, had cracked. She sat down on her hind legs, which was completely uncharacteristic of her. She looked at the struggling beast. A war was raging in her head, in her ancient instincts. On one side was hunger, easy, abundant food. On the other was duty, a concept that seemed impossible in this world, but which was now undeniable. The bear cub watched her, not understanding. He expected an attack, but there was no attack. The wolverine just sat and stared at him. Her small, angry eyes were fixed not on him, but on what was holding him, on the noose. She stood up again, but she didn't go to the bear. She went to the tree to which the rope was tied. The bear cub followed her, his heart pounding wildly. The wolverine approached the base of a young alder tree. She found the place where the rope was wrapped around the trunk. It was a thick, tarred nylon rope. The poachers had not skimped. The wolverine sniffed it. It smelled like humans. She hated that smell, and she began to gnaw at it. The bear cub couldn't believe his eyes. The wolverine, the demon of the forest, wasn't attacking him. She was attacking the rope. It was an unthinkable, absurd sight. She clamped her powerful jaws, designed for crushing bones, onto the thick rope. She growled. She tore. She shook her head from side to side. She wasn't trying to bite through it quickly. She was trying to destroy it. It was a long, painful job. The tarred rope did not give way. The fibers were as stiff as wire. Saliva mixed with blood dripped from the wolverine's mouth. The sharp edges of the rope cut her gums, but she did not stop. She growled, she wheezed, she flew into a rage. But all her fury was directed not at a living creature, but at this dead human object. The bear cub lay and watched. His panic was gone, replaced by complete, deafening incomprehension. He watched as the most fearsome predator of the taiga, risking broken teeth and bleeding profusely, methodically freed him. An hour passed. Or maybe an eternity. The wolverine, all wet and breathing heavily, made one last desperate lunge. There was a dull, dry crack. The fibers snapped. The rope holding the bear cub loosened. The noose around his paw, no longer tight, turned from a deadly snare into a simple ring. The bear cub instinctively jerked his paw, and it was free. He crawled away, whimpering, clutching his crippled, bleeding limb. He was free. The wolverine fell away from the tree. She was breathing heavily, her sides heaving. She spat out a wad of nylon fibers and looked at the bear. They were alone in the clearing. Two animals that, by all rights, should have been enemies. The bear cub, whimpering in pain, looked at her. The wolverine looked at him. There was no malice or hunger in her gaze, only endless fatigue. She had done her job. She didn't understand why she had done it. She just knew she had to. The one who had saved her blood should not have lost his own. She made a quiet, guttural, croaking sound. It was not gratitude. It was not a farewell. It was simply a fact. The debt had been paid. The karmic cycle started by her bear savior had come full circle. The wolverine turned around. Without looking back, she trotted into the thicket, disappearing into the shadows as quickly as she had appeared. The bear cub was left alone. He was wounded, he was in shock, but he was alive. He raised his broken paw and looked after his unimaginable savior. That day, he learned a lesson that was more important than any lesson in survival. He learned that in the taiga, there are laws that are older than hunger, and their name is duty.